Today we're going to look into the beginning of the literature of the Zohar, and we're going to deal primarily with the concept of Ein Sof, of infinity, and Atzilut, which is the word of emanation, from where the Sefirot emanate. We already spoke about the origin of the Zohar. According to the traditional point of view, this is something that was composed or authored by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the 2nd century and has been kept in secret for almost 1,000 years. No one had no idea of it. It's not mentioned anywhere. Its language is not quoted anywhere, and that already makes it somewhat of a suspicious claim. But already immediately after it was published or promulgated in the 14th century by Rabbi Moshe de Leon, local scholars and Kabbalists tried to figure out what is the source of the book. Rabbi Moshe de Leon passed away. They spoke to his widow and to his wife and to his daughter, and they both said that he would write. He had booklets that he would write. So it seemed that it was his own creation. Then another rabbi contested that, said no, he had a divine source, because I asked him for a certain booklet at one point, and then I tried him, and a couple of years later I approached him for a request for the same booklet, on the same commentary on the same section of the Torah, and he produced the same exact thing. So he wanted to produce this as a proof that he had an ancient manuscript, but of course it's not a proof, because all it proves is that he had a manuscript, but that original manuscript could have been written by him. Within rabbinical tradition, there was a lot of opposition to the Zohar. Contrary to what people believe today, that believing in the validity or the originality of the Zohar is sort of Torah Moshe Sinai, was handed down from God on Mount Sinai. Most importantly was Rabbi Meir ben Shimon of Narvon at around the time of the publication of the Zohar. Then in the 17th and 18th century, Rabbi Yaakov ben Tzvi of Emeden in Europe, and in Yemen, more recently in the 19th and 20th century, a group called the Dardaim, which rejected from the city of Darda, which rejected the Kabbalah of the Zohar altogether. But we'll put this question aside of the origin. Whether it was attributed to an ancient author or written at that time, it definitely emerges at a certain junction in Jewish history, and we want to look into what happened then that made it so. Let's put it like an opportune moment for the appearance of that literature. So, going to that source sheet that you have, which is called the Introduction to the Zohar, and I wrote it in sort of bullet points, but we're going to expand on it and see some sources that are related. 1 second. Okay. You could also open the file on your own computer if it's easier for you. So, what we're going to touch on, the first subject in the introduction to the Zohar, is the concept of Ein Sof, which is infinity, and the word of Atzilut, emanation. So, we could say that the central axis of medieval Kabbalah, following the Zohar, meaning from the Zohar itself, and the literature that flourished after the Zohar, focuses on this issue of understanding the divinity, or some call it the Godhead, or in Hebrew, Raza dimhemnuta, or Soda Elahut. Soda Elahut is the secret of divinity. Raza dimhemnuta, the Raza means secret in Aramaic. Mehemnuta is it would be somewhere between the word emunah, which is faith, but also ne'emanut, which is faithfulness. So Moshe, for example, is referred to in the Torah as ne'eman, b'chol biti ne'emanu. So the name Razal de Memnuta suggests that those who know the secret are ne'emanim of God. They are sort of the trustworthy, the trusted people who are close to God. There are other sub-themes that are discussed in the Zohar. I mentioned here the creation, Maaseh Merkava. Those are Maaseh Bereshit and Maaseh Merkava, the creation and the divine throne. The angels and their role, the spiritual worlds or realms that I mentioned in the previous class, that people refer today to as Abiyah, Atzilut Biri'ah, Yetzirah, Asiyah, emanation, creation, formation, and making, but they're not mentioned as such in the Zohar itself. The terms are mentioned, but not as a system of worlds. The Zohar also speak about the role of evil and the role of Satan. They speak about the concept of Sitra Ahara, the forces of evil that almost sort of have an independent will and abilities. Let me fix that. And it speaks about the status of mankind and its purpose, this world, the world to come, and they stray from creation to the end of days. In addition to that, those are the themes in the Zohar, but we've spoken already about the notion that the author or the authors of the Zohar sought to reestablish and reaffirm many mitzvot or practices or customs that were forgotten or abandoned. I mentioned sort of a marginal practice of mixing water with wine with water that was given a mystical explanation in the time of the Zohar, but there are other things like eating 3 meals on Shabbat and laws of purity, family purity, sexual behavior, a lot of things that were maybe people were lax at the time, and the author of the Zohar wanted to change. If it sounds strange because we tend to associate that period with a very rigorous observance of the mitzvot, but as a matter of fact, it sounds strange. We can't imagine how people struggled with observance at the time, because we have this nostalgic view that everybody was observant. If you talk about the 12th century, 11th to 13th century, people died for God. So how can you think that they were not observant enough? But that was the reality. If you look at the full picture, for example, Rabbi Moshe of Kusi in the 13th century went on a campaign to convince people to put on tefillin, because many people would not wear tefillin on a daily basis, and that is today something that we definitely associate with Orthodox Jews that would wear tefillin every single day. To think that 800 years ago people didn't do it is a little strange, but it's true. So that is another element that the Zohar is very concerned with. And there's a subgenre in the Zohar of midrashic material that has been appropriated and sort of like redressed or retooled to be presented as mystical text. But other than that, we have all these themes and concepts that are discussed in the Zohar. But we're going back to the idea of theosophy, of understanding the divinity or understanding the role of God and man. So, following the Mishnat Zohar of Tishbi, of Yeshayahu Tishbi, he identifies 3 main ideologies that were prevalent before the emergence of Kabbalah, and now we're going to use the term Kabbalah as the Zohar and its subsequent literature. So, we had the rabbinic ideology, the mystical, and the philosophical. When we think of the rabbinic ideology, it was mostly expressed through halakha, through the teachings of morals and ethics, and it focused on the daily service and the way of life, meaning the rituals, the prayers, the blessings, what you do at the business, family purity, etc. And that rabbinic literature did not concern itself so much with the existential questions if it had to deal with what we would call philosophical or theological questions, they were mainly the questions of good and evil. The question of theodicy was the main question. Why do we suffer? Why are we in exile? Yes, maybe we've upset God, but now we're good. Now we're doing good. How come we're under the heel of the church? And issues such as that. On the other end, you had the philosophical school, whose main spokesman is Maimonides, that developed post-rabbinic period because of the lack of a systematic ideology that explains our beliefs and our interaction with God. There is a good book, if you want to turn on that, by Haim Ovadia. In Hebrew it's called Hazal Emunot V'Deot. In English, The Sages. That he explains the philosophical world of the rabbinic period. But in the philosophical school, whose main spokesperson is Maimonides, even though we could put there also Rav Saadia Gaon and Rabbeinu Bahyeh Ibn Pakuda, who wrote the book Chovot HaLevavot, The Duties of the Heart, and Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, the author of the Kuzari. We'll see that they focus on understanding the divinity and the role of man and God in the universe in pure logical tools. In between, you have the mystical school, which, as we have seen so far, does not really deal with the nature of God, the nature of the divinity, but rather with the experience of the individual. Right? Most of the texts that we've reviewed, whether they're rabbinical or Sefer HaBahir, even Sefer Yetzirah, Sefer Echalot Rabati, and some scattered references that are found in the rabbinic literature, mostly deal with how the individual feels when he is in that state of mind of the ecstatic experience. And God is described in an anthropomorphic way, operating through angels whose names are detailed. We didn't go through all that, but the names are strange names that are hard to pronounce, hard to remember. Could have been a mantra that would allow people to go to travel into those worlds, but it's mostly, like I said, the experience of the individual. Now, when we think about their theosophy, meaning how do they understand God, so the rabbinical, like I said, there's no clear theosophy or theology, but in the rabbinical world, you could see two systems. One is God's world and man's world, and they don't interact much. Of course, they interact through prayer, but prayer is the service of God. We serve God. God is the creator. God is the giver of the law and the supreme judge. He tells us what to do, and He expects us to follow His pathways in a large measure, like as we have seen in the Torah. In the Torah, the interaction between God and humanity is that of a covenant. There is a covenant. There's a covenantal bond between God and the Jewish people. God took us out of Egypt, and therefore gave us our freedom, and made us into a nation, and therefore we are committed to following His laws and walking in His pathways. So God is the supreme ruler. Man is here on earth. The mystical world, as I mentioned earlier, was not much different. There's God's world and man's world, but the mystical school, up until the appearance of Kabbalah, of the medieval Kabbalah, provided better tools for achieving these goals, because it was able to offer people methods, those who were willing to study and to be initiated into that way of life, because this really was a way of life. It was not a thing that one would achieve on a random visit to the synagogue, or what people do today, Tikkun Shavuot, one night a year that you stay up late to drink coffee and have cheesecake. That's not when you when you have the chance to meditate and really get to this ecstatic experience. So, and then for the philosophical school, the ultimate goal was to philosophically understand God, and the belief was also that only one who understands that achieves eternal life. To really merit, and especially for Maimonides, this was his theology, to merit the world to come, that according to, from rabbinic times on, became, this is the goal of our existence in the world. You could only achieve that if you understand the essence of God. And this is what Maimonides writes in Moreh Nevuchim. He describes a palace, and the palace is surrounded by a labyrinth, which was a common feature in palaces in medieval times. The gardens, some were regular gardens, some were labyrinths. So there are layers of defense, and based on your knowledge and your understanding, you can get closer to the king who dwells in the palace. And he says, "והרוצים לבוא אל בית המלך ולהיכנס אצלו, אלא שלא ראו בית המלך כלל, הם המון אנשי התורה, רצוני לומר, עמי הארץ העוסקים במצוות." Says, those who desire to arrive at the palace and to enter it, but have never yet seen it, are the mass of religious people, the multitude that observe the divine commandments but are ignorant. Now, not my translation, not ignorant, Amei Haaretz came to became the term for an ignorant person. He's an Am Haaretz. Even in the Yiddish usage, it has a plural Amarutzim, even though it's Amei Haaretzot, but Amarutzim is like ignoramuses. But Ramban refers to Amei Haaretz in the biblical sense, the people of the land. There are people who work, who lead a normal life, and they also follow the mitzvot. So they're Hamon Anshe Torah. They're the multitude. So they want to get to the palace, they want to enter the palace, but they have never even seen it from afar. So for him, the people who keep the mitzvot, who observe the mitzvot on a daily basis, are so far removed from the purpose of the Torah that they have never seen it. This is for him, a vacant ritual with no understanding. והמגיעים אל הבית, ההולכים סביבו, הם התלמודיים אשר הם מאמינים דעות אמיתיות מצד הקבלה, ולומדים מעשי העבודות. He says, those who arrive at the palace, but go around it, are those who devote themselves exclusively to the study of the practical law. They believe traditionally in the true principles of faith and learn the practical worship of God, but are not trained in philosophical treatment of the principles of the law. So he says, they believe in the veracity of the Torah. That is a jab at the Karaites who rejected the oral law. And when Maimonides says here Kabbalah, it does not refer to Kabbalah, to mystical knowledge, but rather the chain of transmission of the oral law. Velomdim ma'aseh ha'avodot, and they they study the detail of the details of the ritual of the practice. But lo yirgilu be'iyun shorshei HaTorah velo hakru klal le'amet emunah. They do not analyze the Torah thoroughly, and they did not try to verify the faith. Meaning they were told this is how it is, and they accepted, but they did not try to arrive at it using their own logic. So they are going around the house. But those who tried to understand the principles of faith have already entered the hallway. And those who are there are at different levels, They are in different grades. אבל מי שהגיע לדעת מופת כל מה שנמצא עליו מופת. He who was able to verify all that could be verified and established by logical means. וידע מן העניינים האלוקיים, and also he was able to understand of all the issues that are related to the divine. אמיתת כל מה שאפשר שתיוודע אמיתתו, the truthfulness of all which is within our capacity, the capacity of human being. ויקרב לאמיתת מה שאי אפשר בו רק להתקרב אל אמיתתו, and all the other those concepts that could only be you could get near them but you cannot fully comprehend them, and he got as near as possible. כבר הגיע עם המלך בתוך הבית. That person is already with the king in the palace. So Rambam delineates a very clear hierarchy of knowledge and merit. To be with the king in the house, you have to be able to arrive at the understanding of God and the divinity in with logical tools. And if you didn't do that, you're outside. You're an outsider. Even if you observe all the mitzvot, even if you know the details of halakha, that's not enough. Some scholars believe that the reason that Maimonides wrote the principle of faith, the famous principles of faith that many people recite, I believe that the Torah is given from heaven, that it will not change, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the master of all prophets, etc. This is one part. Those are the beliefs that are transmitted by Kabbalah, right? By that chain of the transmission of the oral law. But the other elements that were important for him is the idea that God is one and indivisible, that He is unique, that He has no bodily shape, that He preceded creation and will outlast creation. All these things are deep philosophical concepts. Ideally, Maimonides would have wanted us to study the guide of the perplexed and to disperplex us, so we will be able to fully comprehend that. If we're not that good and we cannot make it, then he wrote for us the Ilchot Yesodei Torah, the laws of the foundation of Torah, which present that in a more concise and maybe easy to digest manner. And for those who are not capable of even doing that, he presented the principles of faith in a sort of a simple, concise manner. And he did it because he believed that if you don't know these things, you're not going to marry the world to come. And he felt bad for the Hamon Ha'am, for the multitudes who are going to miss on that opportunity. So that is how philosophy treats theology. Rambam is trying to present a system and a hierarchy and the importance of learning and analyzing and really going in depth into those questions. The Kabbalah aspires also to reveal the hidden layers of theosophy, of the understanding of God, and its knowledge saves one's soul. And according to Kabbalah, the Torah and the commandments are the lower rungs in the ladder of religious values, meaning that to keep Torah and mitzvot is great, but you have only started to climb the ladder. You did not reach the top. And so we find in the Zohar, in Parashat Ba'alotcha, he says the following: Tipshin de'alma, we have the translation here, Tipshin de'alma, the fools of this world, la mistaklei ela be'ahu levusha, dehu sipur deoraita. They only look at the outer external garment, which is the narrative of the Torah, or the language that is communicated to us. Not necessarily the narrative, I translated narrative, but it means the written words of the Torah, as in lesaper is to tell. Vela yadai yatir, vela mistaklei bema deihu tehot ha'u levusha. But they know nothing more than that, and they do not bother to ask what is hiding under the garment, the body, the physical body that is wearing the garment. Inun deyadain yatir, those who know more, la mistaklan bilevusha, ela begufa deihu tehot ha'u levusha. They don't look at the garment, but rather at the body, which is under the garment. Hakimin avde de malka ila'a, but the wise ones who are the servant of the supreme king, inun de kaimu beturah de Sinai, those who stood at Mount Sinai, those who Mount Sinai do not look at anything else but the neshama, which is the essence of all the Torah mamash, the actual Torah. What is the neshama of the Torah? It is not explained here. The neshama in other parts of the book is the sephirah of Bina. Bina is intelligence, or the ability to understand one thing from the other, but it's not necessary that this is exactly what the Zohar means here, because the convergence of terms and redundancy of terms is very common in the Zohar. So it could be that here the Zohar just refers to a certain general concept of neshama, which is the inner knowledge of the Torah that evades most people. So it's interesting to see that the allegory here is that of a garment. The garment in the Bible, and I think in culture in general, garments are elements that, or objects that allow us to hide the true nature of something, of a person. To dress up is to change our personality, and we find this in the Bereshit many times. Yaakov disguises himself to take the Bechorah from Lavan, from Esav. Tamar wears a scarf to deceive Yehuda. Even Adam and Hava are covered up. They cover up their sin with the fig leaf. And the word beged in Hebrew really is derived from the same root as bagad, which means to betray. So the garment betrays the person who sees it, because we don't know what is the true nature of the one wearing the garment. So it seems when we look at this discussion of the Zohar and we compare it with what Maimonides says, that they were pretty much on the same page, right? They both agree that the sort of the revealed, or the more common part of the Torah, that of the text of the Torah and the observance of the mitzvot, is just the initial stage, and there's a long way to cover before you get to the essence of what the Torah or the divinity or man's purpose is all about. And that is something that you have to really devote your time to. So it seems like the Zohar and the Rambam are on the same page. Not only that, just as Rambam believed that if you don't study those things, not only you don't fully or wholly fulfill your purpose in this world, you're not going to merit the world to come. We find the same concept in the Zohar. We read this: Hai hayuta kadisha kaima. I'm going to push it a little bit so we have it in the same here. Hai hayuta kadisha kaima kad nishmata salka umatat legabe. So there is this holy beast. Not necessarily beast, could be a creature, could be an essence. I'm just like, this is the literal translation, and it stands under the divine throne. Kad nishmata salka umatat legabe. When the soul rises, meaning the soul leaves the body, it's a wordplay in the Aramaic, because salik in Aramaic is to rise up, but in the Zohar this is also used in the sense of to be driven away, istalak, and that is, by the way, one of the methods that scholars and before them rabbis used to date the book of the Zohar was its use of Aramaic. The Aramaic of the Zohar is an artificial one. It tries to imitate Babylonian Aramaic of the Talmudic period, but there are many deviations from the forms that the Talmudic Aramaic uses, and there are even Latin and Spanish words that were addressed with an Aramaic form and were used in the Zohar, and there are even some words that some scholars believe were planted there just as a decoy, or to cause people to feel that you are dealing with an esoteric text. So a word was just brought in that had no meaning, and or like a new word that the author created. In any case, this neshama is salka, meaning it both rises to heaven, but is divorced from this world. And when this neshama arrives at this holy or divine beast, keden sha'ala beraza de chochmeta de mare. It is being questioned regarding the secrets of the knowledge of its master. Ukefum hai chochmeta de radif abatra ve'idbak ba. According to the wisdom, according to the level of the wisdom that person pursued in life and clung to or attached himself to, according to that, he receives his reward. Ve'yachil le'adbaka ve'la'idbak. But if he was capable of attaching himself, of latching himself to this divine wisdom, and he did not, dahele levar ve'la'ila. This person is ejected, is rejected out of the palace, and kaima tehot chala bichsifu, and then he has to reside under this palace in shame. Kesifu is also it's an Aramaic word that it reminds the word kesef in Hebrew, money, but it means silver that is pale. And kesifu is to be embarrassed in a way like the blood drains from the face. That's why we use this term kesifu. So it seems, like I said, that it's similar to what the Kabbalah demands from people is similar to what Maimonides demands. There is similar, as in many things, there are already seeds of that idea in rabbinic literature. In rabbinic literature, they speak about the judgment of a person who comes to heaven. It says Tehilat Dino Shel Adam, when the person comes to heaven, or meaning when he dies, he is interrogated, being questions: did you study Torah? Did you conduct your business ethically? Did you keep the laws of? Basically, the questions, as some scholars have proven and rabbis have proven, the question that the Midrash presents as the questions that the neshama is demanded to answer correspond to the 6 orders of the Mishnah. So it's interesting. Each person or each generation, whatever that the generation feels is the height of wisdom, would describe it as the questionnaire that is presented to the one who seeks to enter the Garden of Eden or the world to come. So for the rabbis of the Mishnah, it was: did you follow the Mishnah? Did you study Torah? Did you keep the holidays as in the order of Moed? Did you keep purity as in the order Taharot, etc.? For the Zohar, it's: did you delve into the divine wisdom? Because this is what the Zohar teaches. It's a tool also to promote the importance of learning those texts. So, because here we have sort of a shift. We have a shift from the insistence of esoteric knowledge that is kept as the sole property of the learned individuals, into an attempt to convince more and more people to get into that circle. But still, even that attempt was not directed at the multitudes; it was directed at the scholars. And we know that for a couple of hundreds of years, this knowledge, indeed, until the 16th century, still was studied only in a very, very small circles. So apparently, there is similarity between Kabbalah and philosophy, right? They both demand knowledge of the deepest levels of, or the highest levels of theosophic knowledge, but there are essential differences. So first, there is a difference with the means that are used, the means that is used to achieve that goal. What are the means? In philosophy, it's logic, sechel. So Maimonides already delineated the program for us. This is what you have to learn, this is where you have to go. But he expects a person who learns that to be able to internalize that knowledge and to arrive at that conclusion at a later time on his own. Matabele Domain, what is this analogous to? When you study, you could study a mathematical formula that you could use over and over and over again, but Maimonides would want you to understand how the formula works, not just to use it as a tool, but to be able to create that formula from zero. So that is the purpose, to use the sechel, to use logic, and to be able to build this whole logical structure until you arrive at the understanding of the divinity. But in Kabbalah, it's not the sechel, it's hasechel amiti, or hasechel kadosh. So it's interesting how Kabbalah appropriates the term that is used by the philosophers and makes it into a mystical term that is the true sechel, or the holy sechel. So sort of when you say the true sechel, we could still sort of digest the term, right? It's logic, it's true logic, so it's logic that allows us to arrive at the truth. But the holy logic is sort of an oxymoron, right? Because holiness is something that we associate with emotion and with something that we feel with our senses, whereas sechel is logic. When the rabbis, the masters of Kabbalah created this, or the authors of the Zohar created this new concept. The purpose is also different. The purpose in philosophy is intellectual perfection, acquiring knowledge. What you have to do, what the ultimate achievement is, the command of knowledge. And the person who has command of all the knowledge which is available, including the philosophical discussions of what and who or why God is, has achieved that goal. And as a result, I think we could associate this type of philosophy, or some of the works of Maimonides, with a more rigid and I would say emotionless approach. It's devoid of emotions and excitement. It's more rigid, and indeed, you could see that Rabbi Avraham ben Arambam, who took his philosophy to sort of an extreme. Rabbi Avraham ben Arambam wrote a book called, in Arabic, Kafaya al-Abadin, which means that which is sufficient to those who serve God. It's shorter in Arabic, Kafaya al-Abadin. In Hebrew, it's called Hamaspik le'ovdei Hashem. And in that book, he speaks about hermits and ascetics, and he says this is the ideal way of life. It could be a direct influence of Sufi philosophy, or in the other way, in a different way, just a cross-fertilization between the two, because they were very close together geographically and linguistically. So Rabbi Avraham ben Arambam, the son of Maimonides, praises a way of life which is disconnected from this world. So there's no need to be engaged emotionally or or physically with the world, as long as you could achieve all knowledge logically, intellectually, you have fulfilled your role in life. In Kabbalah, however, we see something else. The purpose of Kabbalah is theology. Theology is the ability to impact the divine worlds, meaning there is a reciprocal relationship between human beings and God. Whereas in rabbinic literature, we see already in rabbinic literature something of the sort, and that is that our actions cause God to be in exile. But we all understand that we are not the one who decided for God to go away, right? You know that children of divorced couple have this complex, this guilt complex, that they think that because they were bad kids, they misbehaved. That's why their parents broke up. But we know that they're not the cause, and there were other reasons. Even if the kids were misbehaved, even if the children were difficult for one of the parents to handle, they're not the cause. They are the excuse that the parents used, and it was their own decision to break up or to leave the house. And in the same manner, even though the rabbis in rabbinic period spoke about God going in exile because of our actions and God crying because of our actions, they understood that what they're saying is basically that God would only operate with us under certain conditions. We did not force him to do that. He could have chosen to stay or to go, but that is sort of an outcome of our actions. But in Kabbalah, the idea of theology is that there is an immediate connection. It almost as if we say that men could wrestle God and force God to do certain things. And then again, we have a glimpse of that in the Bible. Yaakov wrestles with the angel or with the man, and he says, "You were able to conquer God and man." And God tells Moshe, "Do not talk to me, do not speak to me about that nation." But all these things can be understood as some kind of a negotiation. God says, "Okay, let's negotiate. Let's see what is it that you have to offer." Even the wrestling of Yaakov with the angel could be understood as a negotiation. If for Yaakov the angel or the man is representative of his brother Esav, then Yaakov is struggling with, was what I did was right or wrong. There's a kind of negotiation. But in Kabbalah, in theology, is the idea that a human being can impact the divine worlds. So what happens is that the insight of the Kabbalist, which is achieved either by meditation or by studying those esoteric secrets, this insight ignites a spark, and that spark now reawakens certain powers within the soul of the person, and that man becomes a partner to God in the act of creation. So the tzaddik or the mystic, who is now aroused by that divine inspiration, is now an active creator in the world. In later literature, that will be described as aliyat neshama, the essence of the soul. The soul ascends from this world, which is the lowest one, the world of making, of asiyah, to the world of yetzirah, formation, then the word of beriah, creation, then the word of atzilut, emanation, and in a further step, that would now be taken and applied to the prayer. So, when the liturgy also took mystical dimensions, they would say that they were 7 parts of the tefillah were identified, where one ascends from the beginning of tefillah is in, let's just use the numbers for the world, 1, 2, 3, 4, with 1 being the highest. So we start at world number 4, and we go 4, 3, 2, which is the Shema, 1, the Amidah, and then we slowly descend back 1, 2, 3, 4 until we end the tefillah with Adon L'Shabeh. That is according to the Ari, the prayer by the Ari. So it's an interesting development where, just like Maimonides, I would say, Maimonides who started with the height of philosophy that took him years to understand, analyze, and compose, and then he made it into a more simpler text, and then it ended up at the end of the Siddur, or songs that people sing, Ani Ma'amin Be'emunah Shlema, etc., etc. The same thing happened with those deep Kabbalistic teachings that started as a way of meditation that awakens that knowledge or that aspiration to the divine, and one ascends slowly to the upper worlds, and then that process became a technical thing that is written in Sidurim. You are now entering the first world. Now you're going to open the door and move to the second one, etc., etc. So this process is called Ita'aruta Diltata V'Ita'aruta Dil'ela. Ita'aruta is from the word Le'it'orer, to rise, or from the word Le'arot, to pour. So as if someone is pouring, like inspiring you with the divine spirit, is in many cases in the Zohar, even in the pre-Zohar literature, is compared to a brecha, to a pool or a spring, and the water that flow from it. So there is the water that comes from below, and the water which comes from above. So God pours water on you, and then you have your own inner spring that comes up and meets it. So it's a beautiful imagery, and we'll see how it is used in Kabbalah. Let's take a short break now, and we'll continue with this analysis of what are the differences between Kabbalah and philosophy.